Hey, how's it going everyone? This is the Anime Man. I'm sure this particular rumor has spurred around so much on every social media page imaginable for you to not be shocked at the fact that Netflix just released its own original Death Note live action movie. God help us all. Having known it was probably going to be a hot topic within the Anituber community for the next couple of weeks, I thought I would also throw my own 2 cents in. A brother's got to stay relevant somehow, alright? But what I was originally planning to do was, instead of shitting all over the movie ruthlessly for apparently being, well, shit, I was gonna try and take the opposite route and make a video defending the Netflix Death Note live action movie for what it is. Because without a doubt, after watching this movie, I can conclude that yes, this movie's fucking horrible. I know it was supposed to be this psychological horror, thriller, crime drama series, but I was ruffling so hard at some points from the sheer retardedness of this movie that I actually kind of forgot halfway through what the fuck kind of movie I was trying to watch. But keep in mind that while I say that, I don't think this movie deserves a straight up 0 out of 10. And because of this, I decided to create a little think piece of why I think this movie is utterly terrible, but also at the same time why it might be kind of amazing. And don't worry, this video will be spoiler free, or at least as spoiler free as I can make it. It's such an old and popular series, I don't even know what's considered spoilers for this anymore. Spoilers, it has a note of death. Let's begin by saying this. I think the movie is pretty fucking garbage. If I were to give it any such score out of 10, then I would most likely give it a value that is below the average 5 out of 10. One of the biggest issues about the movie that I saw a lot of people complaining about was the fact that it derailed so much from the original manga and anime series. Yes, they do call it a Netflix original, but let's be real, it's still an adaptation. Meaning it has to, in one way or another, stick to the roots of the source material that it came from. And you know what, I might be the first person to say this, but I think they actually did a pretty good job at that. No, I'm serious, don't look at me like that. Definition of adapt: make something suitable for a new use or purpose. Modify: alter a text to make it suitable for filming, broadcasting, or the stage. What a lot of people misunderstand about an adaptation is that they think it needs to be this perfect frame-by-frame replica of the original source material, which is absolutely not true. If a movie did such thing, it wouldn't be an adaptation. That would just be lazy rewriting. So I like to give at least some props to the directors for even having the balls to change around the story and characters, so much so that it can fit the scheme of the audience it's trying to present itself to. And that's the second and primarily big point that I want to address in this video, is the difference of audience. I called this fact out months ago when I did a video dissecting the first controversial trailer of the movie. This movie is obviously not meant for people like you and I who have a clear understanding of the Death Note universe and have read and watched the manga, the anime, and every single other canon iteration of the franchise. Instead, it's clearly meant for an audience who has no idea what the series is about, who don't read and watch as much manga and anime as the rest of us, and who probably have no interest in doing so in the first place. And that's why they ultimately had to change the scheme of the movie and the genres and characters and ultimately the entire story of the movie to fit that scheme so that it could be successful to that particular audience. I mean, if you think about it, it's already hard enough to try and squeeze 108 extremely heavy dialogue chapters of the manga into 100 minutes of screen time. But what's even harder is trying to cram the context of this social psychological warfare between Light and L and all the other characters in between in an easy to understand and digestible structure for an audience that most likely isn't used to this kind of storytelling. And unfortunately, because of this, the movie went from this intelligent psychological crime drama to this extremely dumbed down, gory, gritty horror crime school romance? Okay, to be fair, the whole school romance undertone that was going on between Light and Misa, or Mia? I don't know why they changed the name here. I thought Misa was pretty easy to pronounce. Was pretty fucking cheesy all around and quite bullshit to sit through for an hour and a half. Because the way that this relationship played out in the manga was this really interesting example of Light's manipulative and cunning side. But in this movie, it was like watching a gory version of Twilight, which doesn't make things better. Like, not to give any spoilers away, and I'm not making shit up, but in one of the final scenes of the movie, there's this really dramatic slow motion shot, and while this whole dramatic scene is happening, they're playing Chicago's I Don't Want to Live Without Your Love, while the movie fades into the credits with I'm not kidding. The Power of Love by Air Supply. This is a Death Note movie, motherfucker. Not The Notebook. But now that we're on the topic, let's actually talk about the soundtrack, because I actually think this was one of the more stronger points of the movie, and no, I'm not talking about the previous examples, but rather the dark atmospheric drones and the almost electro-infused soundtracks throughout the action scenes, which reminded me a lot of cyberpunk-styled sci-fi anime and movies. I think actually added a really nice atmospheric and tense scene to the thriller genre that existed, which is, you know, what Death Note is all about. It is ultimately a psychological thriller. And can we talk about the directing and cinematography in this movie? Because wow, there are a lot of good fucking shots in this movie, I'll tell you what. The large use of the Dutch tilt and slow motion were really effective in bringing out that thriller and horror vibe to the whole movie. And the city landscapes and settings in a lot of the scenes were actually pretty cool. Hell, even Light's room was pretty accurately portrayed from the original manga onto the big screen, regardless of the setting change from Japan to Seattle. I still don't know why they decided to move to Seattle of all cities. Not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with that, but why Seattle? No offense, Seattle, I love you. And you know what? Ultimately, after finishing this movie, I can say that the acting surprisingly wasn't all that cringy, especially when you compare it to any of the Japanese Death Note live-action adaptations. I think the biggest problem that was prevalent within the Japanese Death Note live-action adaptations was that they were so infatuated with the fact that this is based off a manga and anime that their movements and their acting and dialogue were just so anime inspired that it became unnatural and corny. Because newsflash, nobody fucking acts like that. And if they do, they probably have to be put down by a Death Note. So hopefully you can see that the directors and producers did actually put a lot of time and care into this passion project of theirs, because this is exactly what that is. It's a passion project. There are a lot of people criticizing Netflix saying, oh, they're just dick riding off a popular IP and this is nothing but a cash grab. Which, yes, maybe true. I'm not saying that is the case or not. But logically speaking, if I were the director, I wouldn't put a fucking $40 million budget on a quote-unquote cash grab. It's clear that the directors and producers had the intention of creating something new from a franchise that already has so many iterations of itself. I mean, there's already 5 full-length live-action adaptation movies from Japan, a full-length J-drama TV series, and a fucking Death Note musical. You think this movie was ridiculous? Go check out that musical. That is just strange to say the least. But let's not steer away from the fact that yes, they did change a lot of things in this movie from the original series. Like how Light and Misa's characteristics are literally swapped over in every way possible. With Misa, or Mia, being the more intelligent, cunning, and manipulative one who tricks and betrays everyone to claim her virtuous justice. And Light being a little bitch boy who screams like a little girl seeing Duke for the first time. I can't tell you how much I laughed my ass off when I saw that scene for the first time. Monty Python should take notes from this movie because this really shined a light on what true comedy is. No pun intended. And hey, remember a while back when that whole quote-unquote whitewashing controversy was happening with Elle being portrayed by the black actor Keith Stanfield? And hey, remember people complaining about it after the movie came out? Of course not, because surprise, nobody gives a shit. The movie still sucked. Not even an Asian actor casted as Watari could save this movie from its ultimate demise. This is why for the longest time I've never really cared about who is casted in a live action adaptation where the story involves characters that need to be a certain race or gender. Ghost in the Shell's Kusanagi Motoko was casted by Scarlett Johansson, who is clearly not Asian, but guess what? Nobody gave a shit after the movie came out because the movie still sucked, regardless of if you casted an Asian actress. If anything, I actually really liked Keith Stanfield's portrayal of Elle, especially in the introducing scenes of Elle into the movie. His calm composure, his speech pattern, even the way he moves his body was all pretty spot on from the original manga. So needless to say, Elle's entry into the movie was this shining light of hope for existing Death Note fans, especially considering the movie up until that point was just a ridiculous shitstorm of total character destruction and plot holes. But then of course for all of you who did watch the movie up until the end, you would know that Mr. Stanfield doesn't quite consistently keep his portrayal of Ryuzaki to the likes of the manga and anime. Not because of his acting skills, but because of the moron who wrote his script. I don't know if it was that time of a month, but L certainly seemed to be a lot more pissed off and moody than what I remembered him to be. PMS affects geniuses too. One aspect of the movie though I did really enjoy, and that I heard a lot of people really enjoyed, was William Defoe's portrayal of Duke. Let's just say the CGI definitely stepped itself up, considering Duke from the original 2006 Death Note looked like a white potato with googly eyes. I think Defoe's performance really made Duke out to be this more demonic figure compared to the original manga, which I actually thought was very fitting considering the movie tended to shift towards a more horror-esque genre. His core personality was still there, but he just seemed more mean towards Light. I don't know, maybe it's because the Light in this movie is just 100 times dumber and 1,000 times less chilled out and cool than the original series. Case in point. Now there are so many more points I can nitpick about this movie. I can give you at least a top 5 biggest plot holes and even a top 5 why the fuck did they do that moments in the movie. But I actually recommend you guys to go check out the movie for yourself instead. And no, I'm not sponsored, but that would be really nice. Hey Netflix. Because in all honesty, yes, this movie sucks dick. But you know what? I still quite enjoyed watching it. I think what made this movie a little bit more enjoyable than otherwise was the fact that I actually stopped thinking about the fact that this movie is a Death Note adaptation, and instead just watched it as a standalone horror crime drama movie. Because that's exactly what it is. It's not a Death Note adaptation anymore at this point. It's just a movie that shares a lot of the same ideas, but is ultimately a movie that is trying really hard to get noticed by Death Note senpai. What I actually found the most interesting was the comments that were left by Oba Tsugumi and Obata Takeshi, the original creators of the Death Note manga, who upon viewing the movie for themselves actually praised it by saying, quote, "In a good way, it both followed and diverged from the original work, so the film can be enjoyed, of course by not only the fans, but also by a much larger and wider audience." And that's the biggest defense I have towards this Netflix Death Note movie for those people who just constantly shit all over it for not being exactly the same as the original manga and anime. It purposefully changed itself so that it can appeal to a wider audience. Sure, in return, it did reap what it sowed, and it got like a lousy 41% on Rotten Tomatoes. But hey, at least it had the balls to be different. And for that, I actually praise the directors and producers for doing something interesting and giving us something a little bit more interesting than just a standard Death Note adaptation. But there's also rumors that the director wants to make a sequel film, even maybe 2 sequel films. And you know what? If we get to see 2 more unintentionally hilarious Death Note movies, then I say, bring it on, biatch. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about the Netflix Death Note movie. Would I watch it again? Sure. Is it a good movie? Not really. But am I glad that it exists? Yeah. If more people can start from movies like this and advance onto its original manga and anime series, then maybe more people will start to see how much more superior and how much more cool and awesome manga and anime in general actually is. And as someone who wants to share their love for anime and manga, and who wants to share the amazing world that is the manga and anime world to as many people as I can, I couldn't ask for anything more. But guys, let me know what you think about this. Did you like the movie? Did you hate the movie? What do you think are some points they could have changed about the movie to make it any better? What are some core aspects about the movie that made you think it was as good or bad as you thought it was? I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of AniTubers who are going to be talking about this movie, if not already. So I recommend you guys go check out all of their other videos, you know, support all the AniTubers and listen to what they have to say about the movie. And then come back to me and let me know all your thoughts and that kind of stuff in the comments below. And hey, if you enjoyed this kind of video, then maybe go follow me on Twitter and recommend me some other anime movies you want me to rip apart. But yeah, for the meantime, rest in peace, Light Turner. It was good knowing you. At least Duke is still cool. Anyways guys, thanks for watching.